again, our training today is brought to you by our partners over at Ventura County. And today we are so pleased to be joined by Roxana Gamboa, the business solutions specialist there, who's here to share more about the resources available to employers like you. Good morning, Roxana. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you, Anna, for the introduction. As Anna mentioned, my name is Roxana. I'm a business solutions specialist with the Workforce Development Board of Ventura County, and I am happy to be here. You can take advantage of our complimentary HR hotline. Please take a note of the number and call in to ask your HR related questions and be answered by an HR professional. Some of the services that we offer are no-cost job fairs to our Ventura County businesses, as well as the HR hotline, as previously mentioned. We also provide our businesses with these webinars, and we also provide sexual harassment training in collaboration with the Civil Rights of California. We also provide assistance for businesses who are in the process of reducing their workforce, or if unfortunately they have that need, then we provide the employees with with a specialized training on how to apply for unemployment in collaboration with EDD. We provide them additional resources and training programs that are available for them at no cost as well. We have training programs. We have on-the-job training programs that are also available where we can subsidize a portion of the wages while you train your next employee. So I will go ahead and list our website on the chat. I will also include a copy of our electronic flip book that you can see the types of services that we offer. And you can also feel free to reach out to me directly. My contact information will be on the chat. And thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate you being here. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you, Roxana, for everything you and your team, Cynthia, Colleen, the whole team does for employers in your area in Ventura and beyond. So thank you again for
Thank
sponsoring
you.
today and for the HR hotline. We really appreciate your partnership. So now I'd
Thank
love to
you.
introduce our trainer today. We have Jessica Rivera, who is our Vice President of Human Resources, who will be leading today's session. So you are in great hands. And Jessica, it is all yours.
Thank you, Anna. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here with you today. I'm in Northern Cal, so we're getting a bit of rain out here. I understand that we're going to be sending that weather down south. So you'll be getting some rain in Ventura County, I expect, over the next few days. But born and raised in Ventura County, love the area and still have lots of family there. So I'm thrilled to be with you. Who are we at California Employers Association? We provide human resources, services, and solutions to employers throughout the state of California. As Roxana mentioned, from the Workforce Development Board, we work with boards throughout the state too. So I encourage you, use that hotline, use the services of the Workforce Development Board too. They provide so many great services to employers and also to individuals when we find ourselves in that situation looking for that next career opportunity or we're in career transition. One of the best kept secrets, I say, but use them, use them, use them. They're a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, and a wealth of support. So as we work with you too, if you have a question around compliance, human resources issues that show up, give us that call. Use that phone number that Roxana mentioned. We have subject matter experts who have been doing this for a very long time. There aren't a whole lot of situations they haven't run into, but they can give you some great information and provide you with information that you would need if you find yourself in need of some support. Also, our attorneys make us say that we're not attorneys. We do not provide legal advice. What we do provide is information, tools, and resources. And at times you may call us and you may have a need for an attorney or legal counsel, and we'll refer you to that too. We'll say, gosh, here's some options for you. And one of them is you probably need to run them by also your attorney. So sometimes that happens, but most of the time we're able to answer your questions on human resources compliance. So take advantage of this really valuable resource. So today we're going to talk about leading and surviving change. And I've been doing this presentation quite a bit for employers in the past 3 to 4 months as we go into our next year of 2026. We were just talking about how we can't believe how fast this year has gone by. And we're going to talk about just understanding change. And really, as we as we think about the changes that happen, the human side of change, because many times when I work with companies and my own business experience, sometimes we forget the human side of change. We want to make things happen quick, but we have to keep that human side in mind because it's all about the people. And then also some tips and tools for managing and leading change. I'm sure many of you on this call today are leaders. You're privileged to lead teams, and you have a real impact on driving change for your company. So we'll spend some time talking a bit about that. As Anna mentioned, if you have any questions at all or any comments, feel free to put them in the chat. She'll keep an eye out for that, and happy to answer any questions you may have as we move forward over the next hour or so. So this is just something that I like to ask people just to kind of generate some thought too. When we think about change, what's our stinky fish? And that's usually our big worry, a fear that we may have, or a block that we may have with change. So when you think about what that might be for you, what are some of those current key challenges you currently face with change? And feel free to put it in the chat box, or just even think about what is that for you? When, as you think about some of the changes perhaps you've had this year, what are some of those worries that you had? Did what you worry about, did it actually come true? What was your fear around that? Was there something that had an impact on blocking you in terms of leading that change or undergoing that change? I think about many of the changes we've had at our own company this year, and we've had some technology changes, and those take time, and those take understanding, learning, all of those things. And usually when we worry about something, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't happen, but many of us had quite a few of those. And I see here in the comments that we've had, some budget cuts where we had to let people go. Absolutely. And we've been working in a time of uncertainty. I hear this from business leaders all the time. And then moving into 2026, what's that going to hold, both for our business and also just life in general? And as we think about change and we think about all the changes we as professionals have gone through over the years, and thinking back perhaps to a time that you experienced a really big change at work or life, and what that change might have been for you. Most of us have probably a couple of ideas in our head right away because it was pretty significant for us. I think back on a time where I had to relocate to Chicago, and I'm a California girl, born and raised. And I had to relocate to Chicago. And the first time, that was a big, big change. And I remember just the thought of having to go to Chicago from California and how that was going to work and how I would survive there, the weather, all those things, not to mention all the family things that come up when you have to do a relocation. But that one is one of the ones that comes to mind for me. And as I reflect on that, even today, I think about that, what that made me, how that made me feel. What did I learn from it? What helped me to adapt to a whole new world, a whole new set of people, connections, environment? I'll never forget the first snow in Chicago. Oh my gosh, I didn't know what to do. Couldn't get that car out of that driveway to save my life. But what helped me adapt? Or what didn't help me adapt? So when we think about the changes that we've experienced ourselves, and some pretty significant ones in our lives, asking ourselves these questions. But the key to this too is we're still standing, aren't we? We're still here. And we do get through it. Sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. We're just overwhelmed by it, but we got through it. And yes, it was step by step. And yes, it was one foot in front of the other. And as we go through this today, I want you to think about that, because many of you are leading change. So you're helping your own team get comfortable with some of the changes that you're experiencing, or some of the uncertainty that you're seeing. And then also being able to create that vision for them too. And we'll spend some time on that also, because we want to get our people on board when there's a change. And one other example I share is even good changes, even exciting changes, something good happening, that scares us too. That makes us worry also. Gosh, do I really deserve that promotion? Am I really ready for that next step? Why did I say yes to this? So even good things that move us forward can make us worry about change too. So as we think about change and we think about some of the leadership trends that we're seeing today in our world, in our country, we are seeing technological advances that are moving so fast. And I'm sure every day when you look at whatever your favorite news site is or where you get information, you're seeing something about the AI revolution, about technology, something else that's having an impact on us. We're also seeing, leaders having to be even more innovative, being able to adapt. We have five generations in the workshop today. So just within the generations, working with five generations, that's creating opportunities for us to grow, evolve, and learn as leaders and colleagues with the people we work with. And then also another trend is equipping our leaders. How do we give them the tips, the tools, the resources to manage the evolving workplace? I mean, if I think back just from a few years ago to today, things have changed quite a bit. When I think pre-COVID, pandemic, now we're starting to see more and more people coming back into the workplace because everything is telling us that people need to have that connection. They want to connect with people, especially our younger generations are telling us we want to connect with the people we work with, and we want to see them face to face, spend time with them in the office. So we're seeing that trend of people coming back to the workplace. For those that have been fully remote, doing a half and half or hybrid type of situation. And for those of us who may have been remote for a while, it's a big adjustment. So that's change for our people too. And then also, one of the most important is that agile leadership. Are we flexible? Are we adaptive? Are we nimble? Are we flexible? And we have to make changes. And also, are we building trust? Because trust is the foundation of any relationship that we have with each other, personal, work life, and the people that we work with every single day. So why change is important to all of us? Because we grow, we innovate, things are constantly changing. How do we adapt to that? Let's face it, we're not going to be a business if we don't have customers, clients, people that need our services, our products and our services. So customers are demanding more and more. And how do we meet those expectations? And if our competitors are able to meet them and we're not keeping up, we're going to fall behind. So that's extremely important. And let's face it, we know customers are expecting more and more these days. We live in a right now world. They want something solved right now. They want something right now. That's the Amazon TikTok mindset. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Also, we want to improve efficiency and performance. How do we continue to become even more efficient? How do we use things like AI to help us become more productive? It's not going to replace us necessarily, but it's going to allow us to spend time on some of those things that, gosh, we never really get to, but they're important that we do that, whether it's strategic planning or whether it's trying to move a project forward and get things done right away. And then, of course, employee development, growing our employees. We're not going to be in the workplace forever. How do we grow our employees? How do we teach them to survive change, to lead change, and to be able to look at change as an opportunity versus, oh my gosh, someone's moved my cheese again, or they've upset my apple cart. Oh gosh, we like that comfort, but how do we get our employees to embrace that? And then, of course, long-term, our survival as organizations so that we can stay competitive in the business world. Someone mentioned they didn't see the link for the slide deck. Anna, if we could reshare that, maybe you've already done that. I'm just noting here on the chat box. So change is important for all of these reasons. And here's another really important piece, and this is what I see a lot with change and companies and leaders that I work with. When we think about change, it's change leadership and change management. So we think about leadership. Leadership is about the people. It's about having that support of our people to get them on board with the change. Because if our people aren't going to be on board, it's going to be hard to get the process done. So when we think about that leadership, we've got to have that mindset, thinking about our people, where are their heads at, their behaviors, what we're going to need to see with this change, the culture. Change disrupts all of these things for our people, and we have to put that just at the top of that list with the process too, because if we don't take care of our people, it's going to be hard to get that process successful, and you'll see why in just a moment. But we think about the process of the structures, if we're making some significant changes within our organizational structure, if we're having some changes within our systems, technology, whatever it might be, and then of course processes. And I'm sure all of you have experienced that in the past where you have had some significant changes to your roles or to things that you're trying to do in your own job or in your own department or in your own company. So important to think about both of those. And I'll give you some tips today that will be helpful for you to ask those right questions of your team too as you're going through change and making sure that you're hitting all those areas to ensure success with change. This always surprises me because when I talk with folks and I travel throughout the state working with teams, people get so mad because employees resist change. You know, this is a good thing. This is going to be better for us in the future. Why can't everyone just get on board and see the value? Well, the problem is we're all human too. We're not robots yet. We are all human beings. And so as we think about hearing it change the first time, it has an impact on us. And as I mentioned before, even good change can cause us some worries. And part of the resistance is people just don't have the time. We're overwhelmed. We like the status quo. We like that, you know, wearing our slippers by the fireplace, knowing what we know. We like the comfort of what we already know and what we already do. A big one too is if we don't involve our employees in the changes we're going to make. I get it. Sometimes we're not able to do that because it may be a crisis. We have to move right away. And we need to get everyone on board right away. But a lot of times we do have the time to do that. When we can get our teams involved in changes that we have to make, that goes a long way in them being committed to that change. Of course, I talked about trust already. That can cause an issue. And let's face it, we make up to 35,000 decisions in one day. It's been said, we're just tired. We're just tired. Our minds are just overwhelmed. We're making decisions. We're doing this. We're doing that. We have to do so much in any given day now, information overload, that we're just tired. And then also, you haven't sold me on the benefit. You know, you're telling me I got to make a change, but I'm not quite sure I'm there. I'm not sure I'm seeing what that return on this change is going to be. Employees aren't quite sure about that. And don't be surprised if only 1/5 of your employee base supports your change efforts at the beginning. Don't be angry. Don't be surprised. Just know that it's very normal for them to resist it right up front. And when I talk to folks and leaders, especially about big changes, I said, we've got to be patient. That's why as much time as you can do to make a change and do some pre-work up front can make a big difference on the success of that change for your organization. I want to just check the chat real quick, see if there's any questions here. Okay, we're good. And here's think about the common stages of grief. There's common stages of change too. And they go from denial. I mean, how many times have you had to make a change and you keep thinking about those good old days? Gosh darn it, back then we didn't have to do this, or it was easier, or this or that. Or you may actually have people that just close their minds to change. They may hear you, but they're not listening. They may hear you, but they're not even trying to understand. They're just hearing the words, and they're just not on board. They're just hoping it's going to go away. If we don't do anything, it'll go away. You have resistance. I'd rather have resistance any day than have denial, because at least resistance, we're having a conversation, right? We're at least talking about it, keeping that conversation going. So people are going to possibly complain, and that's normal. Some are going to be angry. You know, if we make some significant changes to what people know and have learned throughout their careers, they're really good at it. They know they're good at it. And now it's going to change in a very big way. You may get some anger. You may get people just, not wanting to budge. And then also it's going to have an impact on morale too, just being aware of that morale, productivity. Again, that's where the human side comes in, your leadership comes in. Exploration, they're looking forward. Okay, we're going to do it. It's a done deal. But let me just see what this is going to be. Let me learn a little bit more. Well, maybe that might work. Maybe that might be pretty good. Or maybe that's a good idea. Let me ask a few questions about this. So they're starting to get on board. knowing that it is here to stay, then you start that change where the commitment is there. And again, the more you can engage your people, the more you can involve them in the change, even smaller ones. Have conversations about it. Don't be afraid to have those conversations. And don't be surprised if they want to talk about their feelings about this too, and allow them to do that. Many times when we can talk about something, we feel better about it. We're already calming ourselves down as we're talking through something. Or sometimes we hear ourselves saying things and thinking, wow, I don't sound really good around this area. I know that I can do this. But people need to talk about those things, and we need to give them that time and space and the grace to do that too. And here's a Kubler-Ross change curve, which gives you an idea just on people's emotions as they're going through change. And again, it's just about the human side of it. Some of us show our emotions. We show our emotions in different ways. Some of us may shut down. Some of us may have to express them verbally. Some of us may express them in our physical behavior. So just being aware of that, but these are the changes as people go through the change curve. When we first communicate it, don't be surprised if people are stunned, can't say anything. And the biggest thing about this too, and especially for those of you who are privileged to lead people, you already know about the change. You've been processing it yourself. You understand it. If it's the first time someone's heard this, they're going to be a little bit surprised. So don't let that surprise you. Just know that's part of human nature. But it gives you an idea on some of those changes that we go through emotionally when we have those changes happen to us or things happening in the workplace. Here's what you need to know as a manager, and I coach people on this a lot. This is so important. For those of you who lead teams, you need to be okay. You need to be okay mentally, emotionally about what this change is. And sometimes in some areas, we don't make sure our managers are okay, because you've got to be able to talk about this with conviction, with confidence, with passion for those good changes, and be able to express that so people really know you mean it. So we can say the words, but if everything else doesn't support it in terms of our body language, the tone of our voice, they're not going to be so sure it's a great change. So you need to be okay. You need to be able to ask those questions yourself so that you have those answers both for yourself and also for your team. So knowing the reason for the change. A lot of times when we make changes, we're making changes right now at our company because the governor just signed a bunch of new bills in California into law. So there's going to require changes in some things that we have to make in our own human resources compliance work that we do. And that's, we understand the reason for it, but just understanding why it's happening so that you feel good about talking about it. Talk about what that outcome is, knowing what that end state looks like. Because if you can paint that picture for your folks, that makes a world of difference too, for them to see, yeah, this really is a good thing. It's going to take some work to get there, but this is a good thing. And we have clarity around what it is. What's the schedule and timeline? When we're going through change, and I've worked with several companies over the years, but sometimes our schedule and timeline is a little off, or maybe it's too quick, or maybe it's not even realistic. Let's talk about that schedule and timeline. Is it realistic? Is it achievable? Making sure that people understand the steps with that timeline. And the biggest one, will you have support? Will you have what you need to navigate this change? Will you as a manager have what you need to lead this change in terms of support, both from your leaders as well as from your colleagues? Because if managers aren't aligned when you are going through change, it's going to be hard to get your people aligned behind it. So leaders have to be aligned, and they have to show that. They have to demonstrate that. Even if it's, one department may be more effective than another department. Some of our larger companies still have to be aligned overall on why a change is necessary for your organization. So communicating change. You can't communicate enough during change. You'll find you're probably feeling that I'm over communicating, but you're really not. It's been said people need to hear something 7 times before it really sinks in. So don't feel that you're over communicating, but as you do this, what's happening? What is the change? What's the new direction? Is it software? Is it people? Is it new roles? What is the change? Is it a new product? Is it a new service? Why are we making the change? Sometimes we want to do it to get ahead of the competition. Sometimes the environment's doing it to us. We have to adjust. Our customers are demanding something different, something new. We have to do this change to stay competitive. And how are we going to do that? How to achieve the goals? Some of us are very visionary. We have an idea and we're comfortable. We don't always know how we're going to get there, but we have a good idea. Some of us are black and white thinkers. We want to know every step how we're going to get there and make sure that it makes sense to us as we're going through this. So understanding your audience too and being prepared to ask questions, but communicating that change effectively is one of the biggest reasons that people succeed in change. Because if you don't, you're going to lose your folks and you're not going to have them do what you need them to do. Here are some common questions that you'll get during change. And I encourage you, even if you just take this page and use this in your conversations, but being able to answer those questions, both for yourselves and also for your people. And being as specific as you can. Clarity is key during change. Understanding what it is, why we're doing it, how's it going to affect me? People are all about me, our favorite radio station, right? What's in it for me? We're all about me. We're human. So how is it going to affect them individually? How is it going to affect you? How are you going to know if you're doing what you're supposed to be? Are there going to be some checkpoints or some milestones to say we're succeeding in our journey to change? And then what kind of support will I have? But these are some common questions during change that you'll want to have as you're going through change in your company. And even if it's a small change, people may view it as bigger than what it really is. And that's okay. Being able to answer these questions will help alleviate their worry, or that stinky fish, as I said at the beginning, that fear that, I see it differently than what it really is, but helping them think it through. And this is just a pulse check continuum just to see where are we in the whole place. Where are my people? You may go through this as you're going through change, and you may say, gosh, this person's going to be an active resistor. I know that already. This person will be an active supporter because they come on board. But just identifying your people and thinking, where am I going to need to spend my time? Perhaps even communicating more or spending more time with certain folks as you go through. Where are my folks going to be? If it's a big change to me and I've got to learn a whole lot of new things and I'm going to feel maybe not as confident in my job as I was before because I'm learning, I may be a resistor at first because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to learn all of this new stuff? So it could just be fear of learning something new. It could be a number of things, but just identify, where do I think my team is? Because there's a reason for it. And I'll share that with you in a moment, why you want to know that up front. And having those conversations with people, those one-on-one conversations, don't be afraid to do that. When we make changes, sometimes we do have to pull people aside and just ask some of these questions, because we're all going to look at it differently depending on how it affects us. Some of this, you mentioned earlier with layoffs. If there's layoffs, people are going to be worrying, am I next? Is another shoe going to drop? But being able to have those conversations with your folks. And the other thing I coach leaders on when it comes to change is share what you know. Be transparent with what you know is true and true for that period of time. Some stuff isn't fully baked yet. You don't know what it's going to be. And don't be afraid to say, the rest of it, I don't know yet. We're still working through it. I don't want you to worry unnecessarily, but here's what I know today. Here's what I can share with you today. And as soon as I know anything else, I'll share it with you. But being very transparent about that. Leaders don't like to do that sometimes because they feel like I should know all the answers. No one knows all the answers. Just people will trust you more if you're fully transparent in your communications. Now, the reason I say why we want to really pay attention to change is because more than 70% of all change initiatives fail. They actually fail. And I would venture to say if we dug even deeper into that, a lot of it has to do with people. Some of it may have to do with our process. We were unrealistic in this change. We thought we could do it a lot faster or a lot better or a lot differently, whatever it might be. But 70% of all change initiatives fail. But with proper planning, proper attention, you're increasing your chances of success and doing it in a way that you feel really proud of. And this is a model that's been around for a very long time. John Cotter, a Harvard professor, several books on change, but he has an 8-step change model that is very helpful as you're going through change in your organization. And just being aware of these 8 steps, knowing questions you can ask around these 8 steps can be extremely helpful for you. Everything from, at the very beginning, creating that sense of urgency. Why is this important? Why are we doing this? Sometimes it's a crisis. We have to do it right away, all the way down to sustaining. Once you have that change, you've made that change, is instituting that change. But these are the 8 steps. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into these 8 steps and talk a little bit more around questions you can ask around these. And the powerful thing too is, even if you're beginning stage, bring this out and say, let's kind of go through this so that we have our communications squared away. We know what we're going to say. We're aligned. One of you is not saying one thing and someone else is saying something else and someone else is saying something else. But even just for communication purposes, this can be very, very valuable. If you're going through some really significant changes in your organizations, I always recommend thinking about having a communication plan with message bullet points that you know that this is, I stay on track with these communications, because big changes require a lot of communication and you want to be consistent in your messaging. So creating that sense of urgency, talking about why you're doing the change, talking about also what happens if we don't make the change. Sure, we can go ahead and sit back here and not do anything, but we're already seeing that we're losing business to these competitors for this reason. So we can continue to do this and think it's going to go away. But if our customers are expecting it, demanding it, they have a lot of choices. We have more choices than any time in our life on where we can go to get something done. And then also consider soliciting someone outside of your company to help influence the change. It's almost like if we have, think about for those of you who have children, we could say to them over and over and over again, this is why this is so important. And you get yes, 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 but then somebody outside comes in and says, this is why this is so important. And all of a sudden it makes sense to them. So sometimes bringing an external expert in can be really helpful too, to help people understand that it's not just inside the company that's saying this, it's also outside the company. So we should pay attention why this change is needed. Also creating that guiding coalition, looking at who your stakeholders are, but also identifying people within your organization who can help be that nerve center of the change. And it doesn't always have to be leaders. It can be a combination of leaders and employees, but people who will be helping to guide this change for you, because you can't be everywhere at once. No one can be. But if you have that guiding coalition, that core group who can help you throughout the departments as you're going through those changes, helping people understand, communicating some of those same messages, supporting people, listening to people, and those who have a really good understanding of what the change is and the process through it can spread your information and help you spread that influence throughout the organization as you're going through it. A CEO can say we're going to do this, but if that CEO doesn't have people supporting that, it's not going to go very far. Forming that vision, that strategic vision and those initiatives, what's the end goal? How are we going to get there? It's almost a blueprint. It's a roadmap, what we are doing, what we're trying to accomplish, and what are those actions? So what's the task that has to happen and what's that deliverable with it, right? So when we can break it out to people, that allows you also to celebrate milestones. Celebrate, even if you're just a quarter of the way through change, it allows you to celebrate those milestones and to say, we're on the right path. We're doing everything we need to do. We're on our way to success. But that motivates people. It inspires people. Remember that curve that I shared too. It gets people more on board too and more committed about it, because I've seen people go from total resistance to excitement about it once they can see it, once they understand it, and once they see that we're making success along the way. A volunteer army, have have people. So you have your guiding coalition, but who else do you have in your organization? What do we need to do to get buy-in? Have your people help you with that. Who's already on board? Remember, I talked about identifying those people, right? Who's the active resistor? Who's the active supporter? But who is already there? Who can help us with some of these things? Because many times, if I hear something from a colleague versus my leader, what I hear from my colleague could hold more weight than what my leader's going to say, because they're paid to say it, right? They're leaders. But if it's my colleague who's on board, someone who understands it, that is excited about it, that makes a big difference. Again, spreading that influence and understanding throughout your organization. And this is a big one. You're going to have bumps along the way. You'll probably identify some bumps before you even start. These are going to be some of these barriers. Take that time to talk about what hasn't worked in the past. This is where your historians in your company, people who have been there a long time, can really be helpful. But also, it can help also get them on board too, because they've had a say. They've had a say in some of these discussions. But helping people identify what those are so that we can be prepared for them, know what might happen, know what's going to happen, get them out of the way if we have to. And then also empowering people to be part of that solution. When I've led change throughout organizations, and some were pretty significant, I would let my folks know, as we're going through this, sometimes you're going to have to make a call. You're not always going to have a leader to say, yes, do it or don't, or a lead person. Make the call. If it's sound, if you've thought about it, make the call. Be part of the solution. We'll figure it out. If there was another way to do it, or maybe a better way, we'll talk about that later. But as you're going through it, make the call, because I trust your judgment. You know what you're doing, make the call. So empower your people, because when they feel that they're part of that solution, part of that leading it, you're going to get even more commitment. And you're also just creating even more and more momentum towards success. This is big, short-term wins. I tell you, sometimes change is really hard, and sometimes it takes a long time to make some significant changes. So find those opportunities to celebrate both the small and obviously the large wins too, but the short-term ones, find those opportunities. Wins, can be just doing that task, just completing this task. Oh my gosh, we had to go through 1,000 pieces of information to get this stuff, but here's what we learned, here's what we got, and we know we can do it better with this technology now. But whatever that success is, find those ways to celebrate it. It doesn't have to be something tangible all the time. It can be, what worked really well this week, what was our big win this week as we go through this change. What did we learn this week? Maybe we won't do that again, we'll do it a different way. But taking that time to talk about that, that's why a communication plan can be so helpful as you're going through change, and making sure that you embed those times to check in with your people during that time of change. So sustaining that acceleration, you revisit, that sense of urgency. How are we doing after the wins? Getting more people involved in your volunteer army so that people are starting to see the value, understand that this really is a good thing, or it's really a necessary thing. Bringing new people in can help you just see it from another perspective too. Gosh, as I'm looking at this, have we thought about this? Is this going to be a barrier down the road? But continuing to bring people in to sustain your journey towards that change and that acceleration that you're seeing, and keeping that momentum going. Don't be afraid to bring fresh eyes into it. It's like anything else. How many times have you written a document or an email and you've read it 100 times and you just know it's perfect? There's not one bit of errors on grammar, punctuation, spelling, and doggone it, someone else looks at it and catches it in a second. We've seen this time and time again, so don't be afraid to bring fresh eyes into this. And then how do we institute it? How does it become part of our culture? We've made the change. What does our culture look like now? How has it changed? Because our practices, what we've changed, it's got to be fully rooted to make it stick and anchored so that we don't go back to our old ways. A lot of us want to go back to our old ways, but we got to make this work. We've got to keep it sticking. We've got to continue those communications and actions. Finding time to talk about that progress. Remind people, especially when you're getting towards the end of a big change, remind people of how much great work they've done, how far we've come. Sometimes we're so tired we can't see it. Walk us through. Where are we now? And if I see a blueprint or a roadmap and I'm seeing myself towards the end of that roadmap, I'm going to get excited again. I may be tired, but I'm going to get excited again. And embrace that innovation, that mindset in your organization. How do I keep people thinking about changes? How do we continue to make things better? How do I encourage that? How do I acknowledge it? How do I reward it? So those are those 8 steps. And I know it's a lot in a short time that I have with you today, but just taking the time to just ask these questions and answering it when you go through change in your organization to get you started, especially. So that helps you remember the people side of it as well as the process side of it too. So as leaders, whether you're a leader of one and a leader on your team or with a formal title, when you lead and foster change, involve your people, empower your employees, let them know that there is nothing they can't come to you with, that you want them to know that the door is always open, you trust their judgment, you empower them, involve them. Ask them, how do you think it's going? What worked really well this week? What didn't work well this week? What do we need to do better? Encourage them to engage with you in those conversations. Secondly, prioritize your own development around this, because as a leader of people, you have to be good with change, confident with change, comfortable with change, and you want to make sure that you're okay so that you can lead that change in a way that you feel proud that you've done your best work there. Provide to your folks the changes, the tools that they need to make the changes. And what I mean by that, you may think I've got it all figured out or we've got it all figured out, but something may pop up that we hadn't thought about. Make sure that you're providing those tools as much as you need to. Maybe it's additional training. Maybe it's an additional software that you hadn't thought of. Maybe it's, depending on what the change is, it could be some tangible tools that they need to get that work done, or training, especially education. And then lastly, creating that culture of creativity and learning. Call it out. When you have people that bring up an idea, maybe you won't implement it right away, but the fact that they brought it up, call it out. Make a big deal about that. We have to have that creativity. We have to continue to learn because our world is moving fast. Our business world is moving fast. We want to acknowledge and recognize those employees that are staying current with what those trends are so that we can stay competitive and continue to do our best work. And then building your own toolkit to adapt to change. I don't kid around when I say managers have gone through so much change. I know it. We all have. Don't be afraid. If something's not working, try something new. Sometimes we're going to force something to work. No matter what, we're going to force it to work. But in reality, it's not working. Let's shift. Let's make that change if we need to. Stay adaptable, stay resilient. That's all in our minds too. Thinking about what I talked about earlier, all the changes you've been through before, you're a lot wiser than you were 20 years ago, 10 years ago. You're resilient because of those changes. You adapted to what had to be done. Maintain that. Know that you've been through this before. And focus on what you can control. This is probably one of the biggest things I hear, because let's face it, many of us are control freaks. We want to control everything, and we can't. All we can control is our own behavior, our own mind, and certain things within our sphere of influence. But focus on what you can control. Because if I worry about everything I can't control, I'm not paying attention to my people, to the process, what's in front of me right now. So pay attention to that. And then again, don't be afraid to ask people. I don't know about you, but there's been times where I'm struggling through a change with my company, with my team, could be anything. And I happen to talk to somebody who just gives me that answer, and they don't even realize they're giving me the answer for an issue I'm facing. So don't be afraid to ask people for their opinions, inside or outside of your company, to just get a fresh perspective. on how this looks or what they've done in the past, perhaps. And here's what your people need from you. So important. I talked about that clear plan of action. As clear as you can be, the better chance you have of succeeding. Work on that clarity. People have a lot of monkeys jumping in their head at any given point in time. They really do. So if you give me a plan of action that's so long, so convoluted, so confusing, and I can't see it, it's going to be hard for me to understand it. So thinking about how you communicate that plan of action. Maybe you communicate, the end state, but maybe you just communicate the first 3 months of the change. Maybe it's going to take a year, but let's focus on the first 3 months. Then we focus on that next piece, then the next piece, but making sure it's clear to your people. Continue to provide and ask them regularly, what do you need from me? What more do you need from me to support you? Is there anything else that we've thought about that can make us do this even more effectively? What do you need? And then the frequent updates and communication. You can't communicate enough during change. And you're going to feel like a broken record. You're going to feel that, oh my gosh, I know I've said this before. People appreciate it because it helps it stick. And then hopefully they'll be saying the same thing that you're saying to others because they know that this is what we're doing. They understand that they're behind it, they support it. And, being genuinely concerned for your employees, the well-being of your employees. And, I think of things that you can do for them as you're going through change. Again, it can be mini celebrations. It can be recognition that you do. There are so many things that we can do during change to make people feel like, yeah, we're on our way, we're making progress, we're on track. When they feel that way, they're not going to be worrying about themselves on their way home from work, coming to work, what's going to happen. When they have that understanding that we're on track, and making sure too, you let them know individually how they're doing, because our team may be doing good, but am I doing okay? Am I doing everything I need to do? And the impact you have as a leader or a teammate for each other is significant, especially as a leader, letting your people know, hey, you're doing a great job. Really appreciate it. What you did last week with this was incredible. Keep up the great work. Folks, we all want to be appreciated. We all want to be recognized. I've trained tens of thousands of people, and I ask people when I'm doing training, asking people if they ever feel overly recognized at work. And of all the tens of thousands I've asked that question to, I've had one person raise their hand, and it was a young man, and he said, yes, I am overly recognized by my 3-year-old son. I don't have anybody who's raised their hand in the business world that have said, I'm overly recognized. So just that recognition piece goes such a long way for your people, and being aware of it helps you to put that plan together to make sure that we do it, especially through change. Communications, thinking about how you're communicating to. Geez, if I'm going to first announce this change, how am I going to do this? Email is the least intimate form. Face-to-face is the most effective form. Next is virtual meetings. So if I'm going to be announcing, if I'm going to be, going through change, I need to think about the platform, because I want to make sure that it's going to make that impact that I need it to make. But just as importantly, that you can see people. If I have a big change to announce and I can possibly do it in person, I want to do it in person. I want to see how people are responding, not just with words, but their body language, their facial expressions. I want to have that time and space to be able to say, does that make sense? I can say, so-and-so, does that make sense to you? What do you think? What questions do you have? Yes, as I'm communicating updates or progress, I can do emails on a lot of that. But for some of those moments of communication when you're going through change, pick the right platform. It'll save you a lot of follow-ups in the long run if you pick that right platform, and make sure that you pay attention to that too. And as you're going through those 8 steps that I talked about, have this pyramid of communication with you and say, okay, we need to do this meeting on site. We need to do this. But it just gives you that sense that I'm doing it in the most intimate way with my folks so that I can respond to what they may need from us. And I have a final question for all of you. I've talked about a lot of things in a very short period of time. What are one to maybe three action items you can commit to implementing as you experience or you lead change in your own organization? Is there something you think, gosh, I need to um, I need to do better at this, or I know I have an opportunity here, or I know my team has an opportunity. What can it be for you as you think about whatever changes you're going through, as you look ahead to 2026? Because I imagine 2026 is going to be bringing us just as many opportunities for change as 2025 did. And how are you going to stay nimble? How are you going to stay flexible? How are you going to adapt? What is that thing for you that could be helpful for you moving forward, ending this year and having a very successful 2026? I'm not going to ask you to put it in the chat. This is really for you to think about for yourself, for your team, and for your company. And I always like to leave a couple of minutes just in case anyone has any questions on anything at all that I covered. Um, any questions at all? Well, I'll stay on. So Anna, I'll let you give them all some great information that I know that you have. And thank you so much. It's been great talking with you today. And one last thing, thank you to Ventura County Workforce Development Board. Again, another shout out, use the services. They are worth their weight in gold.
1000%. Well said. Lots of nice feedback in the chat. So thank you all. I do want to speak to this slide that is on the screen. This is sort of a end of the year employer checklist. So this is, I know we've talked a lot about, change management and those types of skills, but also important is that end of year compliance as we head into 2026. So I put together this slide for everyone, sort of just a handy dandy end of year, just hit 1, 2, and 3. We've got QR codes as well as little bit.lys on there for your convenience. So again, that will be coming to you as well in the handouts that I will make sure that I'll pull the attendee list and I'll email that to everyone as well, because again, sometimes security settings, or if you're on a mobile device, I know Zoom doesn't always allow you to download that PDF. So I'll make sure you get that shortly after we wrap here. But these are just some resources that we put together for you. A minute ago in the chat, I just dropped the link to this survey. You can also click the QR code there. Trying to make it easier for everyone. You can choose your own adventure. But again, at the top of the hour, I mentioned that we have a very brief survey. It's 5 questions, but this is how we continue to serve you and bring you peace of mind, is by hearing from you. And this is also, there's one question on there for you to suggest future topics that you'd like to hear. So I know our partners over at Ventura would love to hear that as well. And then I did drop, if you scroll up just a tiny bit, I have the link. If you missed it at the beginning, I dropped it in the chat again. There is the link to the next training happening on December 16th. That is called Hire Right the First Time. It's a wonderful training. It's going to cover both. It's going to kind of be a hybrid of some skills that you need as well as the compliance portion. So that's a really, really good training, especially as we start the new year. And one reason you might be here is for continuing education. So we want to make sure that you have those credits available. So your HRCI code today is 720237. SHRM code is 25-DSM94. If you need some guidance on what to do with those codes, you can always reach out to us, ceainfo@employers.org, or always just call into that complimentary HR hotline, and we are more than happy to help you. I do see Roxana back on. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure we mention to our attendees before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you everyone for attending. If you have any business needs, please feel free to reach out. Also, if you can just please include the name of your company. It's possible that we may be reaching out to you just so that we can continue to offer these services. Because we are federally funded, so we just have to keep track of how many attendees we had. But that's all, and I want to say thank you thank you to Jessica, thank you to Anna and Natasha, and thank you everybody for participating. We look forward to hosting you at the next webinar.
Excellent. Yep. So with that, thank you all for joining us live. Thank you again, Jessica, for sharing your time and expertise. We look forward to seeing you all in December and to serving you on that HR support line. We'll see you then. Cheers, everyone.